Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me on today's topical training webinar. Now, we normally have a basic and advanced webinar for all of our labeling products once a month, but here at TechLinks, we recognize there is a lot to learn about in the labeling world. And because of this, we've launched a series of webinars focused on specific topics that we expect most of our customers to face. And today's webinar will be covering the, the GS1 barcode creation wizard in CODESOFT and LABELVIEW using the GS1 wizard. So when you registered for this webinar, we asked which software product you'll be using, and the majority of you are using LABELVIEW, so that's what we'll be showcasing in this webinar. Keep in mind that the GS1 barcode wizard in CODESOFT is going to be identical. So anything you see today can be replicated in CODESOFT. And if you're using Label Matrix, the interface is going to look a little different. Label Matrix is able to generate GS1 barcodes, but it doesn't have the very streamlined wizard that LABELVIEW and CODESOFT has. If you like what you see in this webinar and you want to consider upgrading from Label Matrix to LABELVIEW or CODESOFT, we'd be more than happy to help you with that. You want to keep in mind that all Label Matrix label files can be seamlessly opened up in LABELVIEW or CODESOFT. Now, a little bit about myself. My name is Rob Learman. I am an enterprise support technician here at TechLinks. I've worked here for just about 11 years now. Recently moved to Arizona, and on the right there, you can see my little mascot, Maya. Just a few housekeeping items I want to get out of the way before we get started. You've probably already noticed all the headsets, microphones, telephones. Those are all muted on your end. That is done proactively. Just when we get quite a few individuals in these webinars, the lines can get a bit cluttered. There is a question section in the GoToWebinar console. So if at any point you want me to address something, we do have a live moderator, Tony. You would just expand that question section, type in your question, click submit. You'll see that pop out on his end, and we'll be able to address those live. And lastly, there is a handout available in the GoToWebinar download section. So you just expand the handout section, click download, you'll be able to grab the sample GS1 requirements document. It's quite a few different types of documents. These GS1 requirements documents, they can be anywhere between 2 to 20 pages. As I said, we just grabbed a sample. So taking a look at the agenda for today, we'll be going over what is GS1, why is it important. We're going to take a look at what a GTIN is, a global trade item number, and where you would get one. We'll review that sample requirements document I was referring to earlier. And using that, we'll build a linear GS1 barcode. We'll also use that to build a 2D barcode using the same wizard. We'll also go back and modify those created barcodes using the same wizard. And lastly, we'll slide into the Q&A section. So what is GS1? GS1 is a not-for-profit organization that is dedicated to the design and implementation of global standards. They have over 30 years of experience, and during those years, they have continuously improved the efficiency of supply chains globally. They have over 100 member organizations, over 1 million companies doing business through 150 companies, and about 5 billion transactions a day, quite a few. Simply put, GS1 is just the most widely used supply chain standard system in the world. Now, why is GS1 important? As I said, they are used globally. They are used through multiple sectors, largely unseen, but again, tremendously important. The GS1 standards ensure key processes run smoothly in some of the world's biggest industries, such as retail, healthcare, and transportation. So in a world where data is continuously growing, GS1 standards are going to help you single out what is important. Now, we here at TechLinks are a GS1 US Silver Solution Partner, and what we'll specifically be looking at in today's webinar is the wizard that will be generating the GS1 barcode. Again, this wizard is going to be identical between CODESOFT and LABELVIEW. And you'll want to keep in mind that when using these wizards, there's an importance to sort of staying on the latest version, as we at TechLinks update all of our software to meet GS1 specifications at the time of launch. So if you have an outdated version of the software and the requirements have changed or new application identifiers have been released, the software and barcodes generated may not pass validation or verification.
Also, I just want to point out that the GS1 wizard has been updated for our 2019 products. You no longer have to touch any of the formulas for modifications to the GS1 barcodes after it's been created, as was the case in the 2018 versions and prior. This makes the GS1 wizard even easier to use than in the previous versions. And if you're interested in the newer GS1 wizard that we're going through in today's webinar, we'll be sending out a link shortly so you can download and evaluate this new feature. And lastly, GS1 barcodes versus GS1 labels. The sample requirements document that we are going to show you is for the entirety of the GS1 label. However, this webinar is strictly for the GS1 barcode. So a GS1 barcode is just a part of a GS1 label. We're going to show you how easy it is just to cherry pick some information out of these documents so that we can get up and running and creating these GS1 barcodes. What is a G10? It stands for Global Trade Item Number. And G10 is used by a company to uniquely identify all of its trade items. GS1 defines trade items as products or services that are priced, ordered, or invoiced at any point in the supply chain. Now, G10 is comprised of a GS1 company prefix, and these are assigned by GS1 and specific to the end users, the company or organization, a reference item number, and a check digit. So using these three pieces of information, you actually create the G10. And again, the GS1 company prefix is provided by GS1. We would use that in conjunction with the item reference number, then create the check digit, and all three of those, again, create the G10 number. Now, we do have quite a few end users, as I said, and resellers asking us what the correct G10 number is. That's not something we can provide. It is strictly done through GS1. This brings us up into our training demonstration portion of the webinar, where we'll actually take a look at the new GS1 wizard. So if you bear with me for a second, we're going to switch monitors. Okay, here we go. On the left, you'll see the LABELVIEW software. On the right, you're seeing that sample requirements document. Now on the right, as I said, it's a sample requirements document. Let's just take a look at this. As I said earlier, they come in all different shapes and sizes, anywhere from 2 to 20 pages. This one is about 9 to 10 pages. So it's sort of in the middle. Goes through the placement of where the labels need to be, all the different sections. So we have the from section, item, SSCC. This one actually has 2 different label templates. It has the label for standard weight items and then for catch weight items. And this is the one we're going to be going over today. I already have some of it created on the left. We'll go through that in a moment. But we're really just focusing on this bottom segment, the 3 barcodes here. So just like any of our topical training webinars, there is a bit of expected knowledge, pretty much everything we cover in the basic and advanced webinars. So I'm not going to go into too great a detail with the formulas and data sources that I've already created, but we'll still touch on them briefly. So on the left, we have the software. I've just created some of the sections here. Most of them are when printed fields, just very simple variables. It's just information that's entered at print time. And as I said, I've sort of cherry picked some of the information that's brought into the software. So we'll see in the sample requirements document, we have first, second, and third barcodes. Each one of these barcodes has application identifiers. These are the numbers in parentheses. Really, application identifiers are just flags that determine or define the nature of the data that's coming after it. So we scroll down here, we'll see that 02 is supposed to be the G10, the 15 is supposed to be the best before. And most of these documents will actually show you how it should be formatted. So G10 is supposed to be a total of 14 characters. The best before is formatted in year, month, day, so forth and so on. So as I said, I've created these variables on the left already. They're just simple when printed fields. A few of them I put into variables. I put into formulas, specifically the gross weight and the net weight. Because a lot of the times you need to have the information on the label in specific sections and also linked into barcodes. So as we can see, the gross weight and net weight format has a decimal point. So it's 612.45. And that's just linked into my when printed field, but I'm taking this, putting it through a formula. And all I'm doing is removing the decimal point with the replace string function. And then I'm padding with a 0 to make it 6 digits. So the end result 061.245 as opposed to 612.45. So pretty straightforward so far. But now we're going to start creating some of these GS1 barcodes, and it's very simple using the wizard. To launch the wizard, we just click the object dropdown, highlight barcode, launch GS1 wizard. We're going to see the cursor update. We'll click on a blank part of the label, and now we're seeing the wizard here. Now on the, we're going to keep the symbology at GS1 128 for now, just to display some of these linear bars, because that's actually what the sample requirements document is calling for. After that, I'm going to show you how to create a 2D barcode. But as you can see, on the left-hand column here, we have the application identifiers. To the right of that, we have the data. So it's pretty blank now, so we're going to click the Add button. Now we can start adding some application identifiers. So it's a pretty big scrolling window in here, quite a few different application identifiers. To make it a little bit easier to find one, if it's sort of in the middle, you can just type it up here in the search bar. But again, referencing this first barcode that we're adding, we're looking for the 02, 15, and 37 application identifiers. So the first one we're going to highlight is 02. That's going to be the GTIN. And below that, we have the option to use fixed data or variable data. Most of the data is brought into this label as variable information. I'll show you how to do both. We'll start out with variable. To the right of that is going to be the variable name. So I already have a GTIN created. It's got 14 characters in there. So I've called that GTIN 14. It's under my one printed variables. Now, 14 characters means that this has included the check character. If your GTIN is 13 characters, you don't have the check digit quite yet, you can still link in 13 characters, and then just check this off, and that would create a check digit for you. So we're all set. We're going to click OK. It's adding it to this line here. Now there's just a notification. That's all this is. It's just saying there's a mandatory association rule for this application identifier 02. And it's just stating that it must be used with AI 00 and 37. So it's not going to stop us from creating this. It's just letting us know. It's just a warning. And that's fine because it's saying it needs to be associated with 00 and 37. 37 is already in this barcode. And then down at the bottom, we have application identifier 00. Now we're going to add application identifiers 15 and 37. So we're going to click the Add button. We'll scroll down a little bit, grab 15. That's going to be best before. We're switching the data source to variable. We'll grab the year, month, day format because that's what it's specifying down here. So again, year, month, day. Click OK. And the last one we have to add is 37. And this is going to be cases per. There we go. And this is going to be cases per pallet. I'm going to keep this one at fixed. So I do have the variable created, but we're going to switch this one to fixed just to show you how to go back and forth between the two. It's pretty common where you need to sort of generate a label on pretty quickly on the rush, get some labels out the door pretty quickly. So if you don't have all of this information in some sort of database, an Excel sheet or an Access or SQL database, you can create a fixed variable as long as you know the information. So we'll keep it at fixed. We'll put in 160. Once you get those labels out the door, once you have a little bit of breathing room, you know, you can create that spreadsheet, put all the data in there, go back and modify these barcodes to link that data to variable information. We'll show you how to do that in a moment as well. So we're keeping that at fixed for now. We'll click OK. We have our 3 application identifiers in that first barcode. I'm going to click OK, and it's going to give us those mandatory association rules one more time. And then it's going to prompt us, do we really want to continue? We'll click yes, just to generate the barcode. Even if you're not meeting the mandatory association rules for some of these application identifiers, the software will still allow you to create this barcode. So maybe it's an in-house barcode you're creating. You don't really have a requirements document. And that's fine. The software is still going to allow you to create them. However, it's letting you know that it would no longer meet GS1 standards. So do we want to continue? We're going to click yes. It's going to create the barcode for us. We're all set to create that second barcode. However, I just want to show you how to make changes to an existing GS1 barcode. We can just double click on it. It's going to bring up the barcode properties. We're going to move over to the data source tab. And here we are back in the GS1 wizard. So we can add new application identifiers, remove existing ones, modify existing ones. So if we highlight this, this line here with application identifier 37, we can click edit. And now we can switch this to pull from our variable, cases per pallet. Click OK, and that's all set. Now, in previous versions of the software, if you wanted to go back and modify these, the GS1 wizard would actually create a formula, and you're expected to jump into the formula and make those changes. If you still want to view that formula, it's no longer really necessary, but you can still display the formula. We can export this information into a formula. We're going to export the barcode. We can call this, we'll just call this test. Click OK, and we'll see that formula get created over on the right. I'm going to click OK here. And if we take a look at this formula, this is what the wizard has generated in the back end. So much more streamlined, and look quite a bit easier to use if you want to go back and modify these GS1 barcodes in the 2019 software. You no longer need to really modify the actual formula. Again, you just double click on the barcode and make the changes through there. So again, we're all set to create our second barcode. This one's going to use 3402, 3202, and 90 application identifiers. That's going to be gross weight, net weight, and units per case. So again, we're going to use the object dropdown, highlight barcode, choose GS1 wizard, click on a blank part of the label. We are going to get the I had the wrong one, 3402. Again, that's gross weight. So we'll highlight that, change the data source to variable. Gross weight barcode is my formula. We'll click OK. Another association rule stating it needs to be linked into 00 or 01, and we have 00 in that third barcode. We'll get 3202 in there this time. And this one's going to be our net weight. And the last one is 90, which is units per case. So this one I'm going to put in the search window. We're all set. We're going to click OK. We'll click yes because we do want to create that. And now we have our second barcode. Same thing for the third barcode. The third barcode just has application identifier 00. That's the SSCC number. We're only adding one application identifier this time. All right, and then we have our third barcode. So again, there's a lot of information in this document. For the most part, it is what needs to go where. But for creating these barcodes, we're really just cherry picking information. It's just the application identifiers and then how the data should be formatted to the right of those application identifiers. And, you know, if you can just get that information from the validation requirements document, it's going to be very simple to create these barcodes. Now, these are all three linear barcodes. It's broken up into three separate barcodes because if we were to concatenate this information, you can zoom out a little bit, zoom out too much there. But if we were to concatenate all of this, the barcode would go way off the label. If you are able to, according to the requirements documents, to create a 2D barcode, we can get all of this information into one 2D barcode. So I'm going to create a bit of room. We're going to remove these bottom three linear bars. We'll take all this information and we're going to put it into a 2D barcode. It's very simple. We're just going to go to the object dropdown, highlight barcode, choose GS1 wizard again. And all we're doing is we're changing the symbology. So before it was GS1 128 linear bar, we can use data matrix QR or any of the other 2D barcodes. And again, it's the same process. I'm going to try to get through this one pretty quickly because this should be a bit of a recap now. We're just linking in all of the application identifiers. And now that we have all the application identifiers in the same barcode, we'll see these association rules go away at the very end. Is cases per pallet. And we have 3402 for gross weight. And 3202 for net weight. and 90, which is units per case. And lastly, the SSCC, which is 00. Yeah, but as soon as we get that last one in here, all the warnings go away. We'll click OK. It's going to create the barcode. It also creates a human readable. Human readable is generally not necessary. It's still going to create it. If you don't need it on the label template, you can just highlight it and hit delete. And then we have our 2D barcode created. This is a data matrix barcode with all of that information linked in there. We're just going to switch back to the slideshow now, or the PowerPoint. It's a pretty straightforward demonstration. I hope you found that helpful. To wrap up the webinar, I just want to reiterate a couple of helpful reminders. GS1 barcodes versus GS1 labels, bit of a difference. The label is the GS1 label is the entirety of the requirements documents. Everything needs to be placed just so, whereas this webinar is really just focused on the barcodes, how to get that information out of the requirements document, place it into the wizard, and generate those barcodes. We can also help you design your labels if you're looking for assistance in designing or even redesigning any of your labels. We do have professional services to help take on some of that burden for you. So you can always visit our website at techlinks.com to learn more. Also, again, I just want to point out that it is beneficial for you to stay on the latest versions of your software, just so you can take advantage of wizards that help you maintain compliance. And if you have a subscription license or an active software maintenance agreement with TechLinks, you can always upgrade at no additional cost, which is always nice, especially if you're on version 2018 or older. You'll want to be able to upgrade just to use this most recent GS1 wizard. And you know, upon exiting this wizard, upon exiting the webinar, there's going to be a small questionnaire. Please let us know how we're doing. All the webinars that we do, even the topical ones, are customer driven. So any feedback for us is good feedback. So now that we covered these quick reminders, let's move into our Q&A portion of the webinar. You have to give me just a moment here. I need to pull up the questions section, see if there's any questions yet. A couple of questions. Looks like Tony's been answering a few of them. I can try to demonstrate a few of them as well. Let's slide back into the software. Just going to pull up the labeling software. We're going to minimize the requirements document here. Well, one of the first ones, one of the easiest ones, is how do I get my GTIN? You'd have to reach out to GS1 for that. Again, the GTIN is going to be comprised of the company prefix, the item number, and the check digit. So before you can start getting your GTIN number, you have to reach out to GS1. They'll get you your company prefix. It's a number that's sort of tied into your company name or your organization. Using that, you can have your own item number. You would combine the two. Those numbers essentially go through an algorithm, and then you create your check digit. So GS1 company prefix, the item number, check digit, those three concatenated together make up the GTIN. How do I make sure my barcodes don't run off the label? A couple of ways to do that. Let's get this one out of the way, and I'm going to create a very quick, recreate a very quick linear barcode. You never really have to worry about the 2D barcodes running off the label. So it's the linear ones that are going to maybe stretch out a little bit. Pull it up. It was 02, was our first one, 15, and 37. All right, so we have our first linear barcode. Just to circle back, the software is going to place a white space around the barcode. I'm just ensuring that it's GS1 compliant. There needs to be a little bit of quiet room, so you really don't want it to be quite like this, so close to the edge of the label. You can see that there is like these anchor points aren't right up against the linear bars. That white space is required. So a couple of things, you can always double click on it. You can increase or decrease the narrow bar width, essentially the mil-spec ratio, how wide or narrow that is. And as long as the application identifiers are available on the label template, you can break these up. So again, you saw that it was 02 here, 15 here, 37. The mandatory association rule was stating that we needed 3202 and 3204 and 90 and application identifier 00. That would have gone way off the label, so it's just broken up into 3 separate labels. So as long as the application identifiers are in the correct section, that will be fine. You can also enable fit to frame. That's going to be done in the, I'm sorry, that's for text fields. Fit to frame is going to be for text fields, just kidding. But you can also just grab the anchor points. This is going to auto size it. It's going to be a little bit jumpy because linear bars do need to meet mil-spec ratios. You can certainly do that as well. Another question about how to create stacked human readable for 2D barcode. Wish I would have saw that one first. I already had a 2D barcode up. Let's just make this one a 2D barcode. We're gonna have to start from scratch here. So I'm just gonna put in a few variables. We'll recreate a 2D barcode. We'll add 2 more. All right, so we're going to switch the symbology to data matrix. We'll go ahead and generate this. So we have a human readable as well as the 2D barcode, not as big as it was last time. I didn't put all the information in there. But we can export this to a formula. And we can export for, by default, it's going to be set to barcode, but we can also export the human readable. We can also make that a stackable option as well. So click OK. Do we want to continue? Oop, I gave that the same name. I'm going to have to give that a different name. There we go. So this is our human readable portion. And if you want to make this stackable or bring it down to a second line, you can certainly do that. You just need to figure out where the break is, and that's what you're really looking for is the ampersand. And then you can put in a carriage return 13, which is a ASCII character. Just brings it down to a second line. So if you insert that, that would bring it down to a second line for you in the human readable portion. You would not want to put that in the barcode section. That would throw off the data in the barcode, which is nice because you can export these specifically for the human readable or specifically for the barcode. Just going back and looking at a few of the other questions here. Okay, so another one about where can I find the character set admitted for the application identifiers? If you're looking for a list of the application identifiers, it's just going to be in the GS1 wizard. So we can click on an existing one or pull it up again. We'll just double click on the existing barcode. We'll take a look at the data sources. If we add a new one, we'll see that list right here. So I was kind of jumping around because I needed application identifier 37, and which is all the way down here. So we're seeing the full list in here. It's just a little bit easier if you happen to know what it is to type it in the search bar. It also gives a little explanation as to what it's really looking for. Now, for the most part, if you need formatting, like this doesn't state G10 should be 13 or 14 characters with the check digits, some of these have formatting in here that should be in your requirements document. But again, that's where you're cherry picking. So you're looking for the application identifier. This is stating how it should be formatted. So if you ship 48 cases per pallet, you need to encode 48, not 048. So the requirements document is going to have a lot of this information for you. Just going back, seeing if we have some other questions here. Looks like Tony's answering quite a few while I'm talking about this. There's a question about how to add spaces to the human readable. So I already had this human readable displayed as this formula. For this, we would need to actually modify some of the formula. We can see where it's broken up. We have the 02 application identifier followed by the G10. A lot of these are just followed by output sections. But what you're really looking for is this ampersand. This is where you're concatenating data. So this whole section is the 02 in parentheses, as well as the G10. Then you'll see the ampersand, then you'll see the 15 followed by the actual year, month, day, which is best before, another ampersand. So in between these ampersands, if you need a space, bit of a recap to the basic and the advanced webinars. When you're typing out these formulas, there's really three main things. Anything surrounded by a quote is going to be a constant or it's fixed data. No quote means variable name or an expression, and then you're always using the ampersand to concatenate. So you're really just daisy chaining information together. So if you wanted to put a space in between here, you can ampersand, that's gonna say there's an error because I don't have anything between the two, but really we're just putting a space right in between two quotes, and we'll see that pop up right here in the preview. If I click OK and slide this onto the label, we'll make that a little bit bigger for you. You can see the space right in between here. Again, bear with me for a second. I'm just switch monitors looking at the question section here, see if there's anything I can put up in the software for you. Well, it looks like Tony's still answering some questions. I'm not seeing any that I can display in the software. So in the meantime, I just want to point out we do have other topical training webinars. We've covered creating some of the more in-depth formulas in CODESOFT and LABELVIEW. We've gone through creating grid fields in CODESOFT, some of the more advanced database connections with CODESOFT and LABELVIEW, and lastly, creating that ideal printing process with forms, and that would be using form design and form viewer. And all these are going to be available at techlinks.com/training. And this one's going to be up there. You probably want to give us 2 or 3 days. We'll place this one up there as well. So I'm going to go ahead and shortly here, we're going to close down the connection to my monitors here, but we'll remain available to continue chatting back and forth if there's any other questions. Again, feel free to ask. We'll do what we can to cover those. If you think of something after we close down this webinar, you can see our customer support number up here. You can always give them a call. That is exactly what they're there for, to help you. Otherwise, I want to thank you all for joining me on this GS1 Training Wizard webinar, and I hope you all have a good rest of your afternoon.